evening. Welcome to live stream. I hope you're all having a beautiful evening tonight. Nice. I am having a really lovely day too. Except my car battery died and I need to replace it, but that's no big deal. Okay, I've got to talk now, live, not just sitting here. So I explained to you how it works, although my partner was saying it's really useless telling people because most of the people that watch the video always know how it works. So maybe I shouldn't even bother announcing how it works, just look on my website. The only thing that I will say is that it's 6 p.m. French time on my YouTube channel. So that's how you go to it. And then my Skype address is Cairns12, and that's how you ask questions. But yeah, maybe I just do it once every month or something. The introduction stuff. So we can just go straight into the hard stuff, what you're really here for, non-duality. Dun, dun, dun. So before we do the non-duality, we're going to do a meditation because that's what we always do. And there's different meditations that I recommend. When you're meditating, though, the assumption is that you are meditating, that there is a you inside the body meditating and that you're trying to get somewhere. Let me just shut this and I will stop looking in the camera. That you are meditating and you have to do it to arrive somewhere in a future destination. And obviously that's not true. Because firstly, who is this you? And where is this future destination? Those are both ideas. Excuse me. The future destination is about a seeking energy of you wanting to arrive as something better in the future. So you're daydreaming that there is a you and that you're going to arrive at this place in the future which will be better for you. And that better place makes you feel better maybe in this moment, but it's also encouraging thinking and it's encouraging the imagination and thoughts to bring you freedom rather than what actually is. And what is this moment is the freedom. So the freedom is also always about presence and what's here, what's right now. And then that brings me into the topic of the title, which is in every given moment do exactly what you feel like doing. That's how Ramesh used to say it while rocking on his chair. Ramesh was one of my main teachers, and this was what he used to say, in every given moment do exactly what you feel like doing, knowing there's nobody doing anything. And to me, what that means is that you become really present to the sensations that are appearing in the body, and you're not acting anymore out of the mind. And when you become really present to the sensations in the body, what's really amazing is that the body and the world begin to disappear. So if you really meditate on that, doing everything that you feel like doing in every given moment, you really feel what the body wants, then eventually you'll begin to see that that's life acting out. It's life's dance happening. It's not yours, because there is no difference between you and the world, which is so beautiful. But back to the meditation. So basically, I have the urge to meditate. Like, that's what I feel is nice to do. And you hear me, not necessarily, but maybe you hear me as saying, you have to do that to be happy, or to be free, or to get enlightened. Whereas actually that's what you're reading into it, that's what your mind's imagining. What I'm actually doing is just going with the flow of what's felt, which is life's flow, and either you will do it or not, which is also life's flow, but the imagination will think, I'm doing it, I'm meditating, I'm going to get somewhere. And really it's just the flow of energy wanting to express itself, and the more that you're in line with that flow of energy, the less of an intellectual and mental you there is, this idea of you which is separate. You that is a thought and a story and in the mind, is in the head. What people would traditionally call the ego. Ramesh, though, used to use ego in a positive way. He'd call the ego the character, so I'm always reluctant to use that word, but in the negative way, it's like this ego, this mental ego that's formed of what you think you are, who you think you need to be, and where you think you need to go. Yeah, so the different meditations that I recommend, but I'm really not recommending them, it's just what comes to mind to say, and you either do them or not. And they might work for you in the sense they might relax the body, or they might not, they might make it really chaotic. Who knows? Is just sitting there and doing nothing. So you just sit there, you don't browse on the internet, you just shut your eyes and you sit there and you just let the mind wander to anything it wants to wander onto, and you don't have any limitations. Funny enough, that meditation is called just sitting. And I didn't actually make that up, which it sounds like I would, because it sounds like a child's meditation. Like, in the sense, not because you're just sitting, but it's like, just sitting, it sounds like a game. It actually was in the Buddhist group I belonged to. They had this one where you just sit, just stand, just walking. And this one is just sitting. And then the next one is the mindfulness of breathing, which is just counting your in-breath. So every time you breathe in, you count in an ascending order. So from 1 to 10. And when you get to number 10, you come back to the beginning again. So you're just going from 1 to 10, just counting your in-breath and ascending each time. And then when you get to number 10, you go back to the beginning again. That's called the mindfulness of breathing. Then the third meditation I would recommend is the I am meditation, which is bringing your attention back to beingness, back to I amness. So just coming back to that sense of being, which really, like, I am is your original sense of being. So I am often goes in I am Lisa, I am right, I am wrong, I am good, I am bad. And this is this I am, this fundamental sense of being which is beyond all the titles that you've given yourself. It's the sense of being or being alive that's always been there. I am. I am. Come on, E, you can come up. Come on, E, come on, E, come on, E, come on. Come on, E, come on, E. If you have a dog, you know what I'm doing here. It's actually funny because E in French, ici in French is here. Come on, ici. E. up you come. Come on here. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Yeah. She just needs this encouragement. Otherwise she'll just keep walking backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. So I'm going, come on here in French. Come on here, come on, come on, come on here. Yes. So the initial sense of being, which has always been there, which isn't I am bad, I am good, I am right, I am wrong, it's just being. I am. Okay. Los geht's. Los geht's. Nice. Okay, so welcome back from the meditation. Okay, so what was the title of the talk again? In every given moment, do exactly what you feel like doing. Ramesh Balsekar. Nice. So, if you're an English speaker, you have to start always new paragraphs with so. That's the way we do it in England. So I am going to sew up my top. So many people. So I only knew Ramesh, I think, for 3 years. I knew about him for many more years before that. A Buddhist friend, had given me his book. And then I met him in 2007. Yeah, 7, and then he died in 2009. I think it was almost 3 years I had met him in person. He lived in Mumbai, on the top floor of an apartment building in which all his family lived in all the different apartments. And he was the head of the Bank of India. And every day, every morning from 9 to 11 a.m., he had talks in his apartment about non-duality. And when I went to see him, I had been for a year and a half, like, 'cause I'd known for him since I was maybe like 24 or 23, and I met him when I was 27. But then just before I met him, I really fell in love with Neo-Advaita, which I was super glad I did. But it meant that when I met him, I was a little bit like, he's wrong. Like a little bit of an attitude, like I liked what he said, but he's not quite getting the truth. So I was a little bit of an attitude. But I also remember like feeling really like shocked when I first met him. Like I went into his apartment and there weren't very many people there. And the hosts were trying to get me to sit in front of him to ask questions. And I just remember being a bit shocked, like seeing him, like someone you've heard talked about and you've read their books, and then you see them in person, you're like, and I remember it being really beautiful. And at the time I was traveling India, and I just think I spent 2 months there listening to his talks until I got ill, and then I went to Pune to Osho's ashram to recover. And I would just listen and very rarely spoke. I think the first time I did speak to him, he said, "Why have you come?" And I said, "Fuck knows how the universe works." I hope I didn't use the word fuck, but I think I did. I had attitude. And I think I wasn't like being really rude the way I said it, but it was rude. But I think I said it in like a laughy way, but that's still really rude. Fuck knows how the universe works. Or God knows how the universe works. Let's hope I said God and didn't say fuck. But for some reason I have the feeling I said fuck. And so he was asking more on the human level, and I was being a bit absolute about it, as in like, I don't know why I'm here anymore. You know, I'd like had so many teachings, and they just got to the point where I was like, I don't know. And I just had a bit of an attitude because I also was really into Neo-Advaita, and I thought that his teachings were slightly wrong. And Yeah, and I just listened for like 2 months, just listening, and it was like a meditation every morning. This was kind of like before YouTube, where you could just switch it on and wake up to non-duality. Like I did have some tapes and cassettes, but I was quite poor at the time, so I didn't have that many, and I just would listen to them over and over again. And this, to me, was like a meditation practice. Even though in my mind I was like, yeah, he's not quite got it. Like Neo-Advaita's right, there is nobody. There's still something beneficial happening there. And I thought to myself that it was like a meditation. It's like I went there and it was like a detox and a meditation and like good energies. And it's kind of like retraining the brain into no doership. Like I was really attracted by no doership and no self. And I think that I didn't really get the depth that what he was speaking about until I met my next teacher, which was Roger Castillo. So this is like a long story, so we're going into storytelling now. So I was there for 2 months at Ramesh's, going every morning and listening to him. And there was like a bit of a group that would go every day. Like there were Indian people, and then there were some Westerners, and then we'd all go to the cafe afterwards. And I had this routine. And then one day I got really, really ill. I think it was from having grapes. Like, I think I didn't wash them properly, and I was so ill. Like I was in hospital for days. Like it was like, if you've ever been to India, where you're like puking from one end and then the other end is coming out from the other end as well. Like I was in such a pickle. And when it started, like when I got ill, I was staying in a hotel that didn't have water at night. I was on a budget. And so it started at nighttime, and I just had no way to clean myself. So in the end, I had to just use like my clothes and my towels. It was terrible. And I don't think they have toilet paper in the toilets in budget hotels. You have water, but there was no water. I was in a right mess. So, and then eventually I got taken to hospital. A friend came and took me to hospital, and I had to have drips and antibiotics. I was in such a pickle. Like Westerners really can't take some of the stuff from India sometimes. And after that, I really didn't feel good, and I didn't want to stay in Mumbai. I think it was coming to rainy season, and I was just getting like really grossed out by the dirt. And I'd been so ill, I felt like I needed to be pampered. And I'd known about Osho, and I enjoyed like some of the Osho practices and techniques. But I wasn't like an Osho follower. I never really got into his books or his talks. It just didn't, like I was used to just think it didn't really fully make sense to me or something. I don't know what it was, but it just didn't really do it for me. But I knew about him, and I liked the idea of his practices, and I wanted to go there because it was clean, and because maybe I missed home at the time. It's like, and it maybe felt like it would be more westernized or more homely. I was in India by myself. So I went to Pune, and while I was in Pune, I was sitting at a table one day. So this was maybe like 3 or 4 weeks into being in Pune in Osho Ashram. And this guy started talking to me. And I still can be a bit like this. I'm not always very welcoming to new people I meet. So I was just like, nope. The barrier's down. He was like, do you want to come and sit with me? And I was like, no. And I was eating my lunch. And then a woman came who I knew from Ramesh's talks. Her name was Rani, and she sat at the table with him and started talking to him. And then she was like, "Oh, hey, Lisa!" And so I was talking to her from the other table. And I'd never seen. It was Roger sitting at this table, and I'd never seen Roger before at Ramesh's talks, but I'd seen Rani, and I knew her a little bit. So she said, "Do you want to come over and join us?" And so I was a little like, well, I've just like really rejected this guy. But okay, I didn't say that out loud, but in my head I was thinking that. And so he came over and sat at the table, and I didn't know that he knew Ramesh or went to Ramesh. And so then, like in the off season, so not in the peak season, you begin to see everybody all the time that's at Pune Ashram. So then after that, I saw Roger around, and we began to talk. And Roger just like, his personality at the time was just like no chit chat. He wasn't interested in that. He'd just go straight into the hard stuff, and he just started teaching me right from the beginning, and talking about Ramesh and talking about like what he thought about Ramesh and the teachings and non-duality and massaging your body to help release emotions, all different types of things. And it just, like, his depth and his detail really struck me. And I think at the time, you know, I was really desperately looking for somebody to help me. And when I went to see Ramesh, although he was like really helpful, like it wasn't like this one-on-one experience. And I just was like really, really grateful for it. And so I don't know how much longer we spent there. But I just was listening and hanging off every word, and he really helped me understand Ramesh's teachings better, surprisingly. He really pushed my mind to my limit. It was really beautiful. And like, I think the one-on-one attention was really helpful for me. I think I needed that. And so then I left and I went back to Ramesh, and Roger stayed in Pune. And I then went back to England. And then over the next like 10 months, me and Roger got together. And then after 10 months, when I was in Australia, where Roger lived, we decided to go to India together. So this was like most probably 10 months after I'd known him, maybe 6 months after we'd become an item. And we went to Ramesh's, so we'd never been to Ramesh's together at that point. And on the first day, Ramesh remembered me. I'd been there for 2 months, and he knew Roger very well. And then on the first day, at the end of the talk, Ramesh came up to me and he said, if you want peace of mind or freedom, then you have to listen to everything Roger says, everything. And that's quite something for a teacher to say to you. Like, it might have been nothing for Ramesh to say it, but that's something that imprints on your brain. Like, this is a teacher that I've been following for like 3 or 4 years, and I had great respect for him. And then for him to come and find me in the audience and say that if you want peace of mind, then you have to listen to everything Roger says. So for the next 3 years after that, I went and I listened to everything that Roger said, and it was like super intensive, like nothing that I could possibly put into words to people. I feel like I went into a Zen monastery. You know, like in Karate Kid, there's this scene where the teacher, I've forgotten his name, it's on the tip of my tongue, where he teaches like wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off. I feel like I had that for 3 years, like really intensively. And I maybe make it sound a lot more romantic than what it was. Like, it was really, really tough. Like, I went and lived in Australia in the bush. Like, we didn't have that much around us. You know, from living in London and having lots of friends and a job and a career, like, to then living in the middle of nowhere doing the cleaning and the raking of the leaves, because we lived in the bush. It was really intense. No family, no friends. It was like the ultimate mind washing, like washing your mind. And I can see the dangers of it. Like, I can see that me and Roger most probably fell into some danger zones. Like with this being in a relationship and then being the teacher. More than relationship, I saw him as a teacher. Like, we really didn't have much romance. There was something else that glue us together. Like, we weren't energetically, romantically compatible, really. But we were very good friends and a teacher. Like, and I just was in awe of his teaching and how precise he was and how determined and dedicated he was. It was like some days I'd get like 5 hours of teaching. Like, he could speak so much about it. And it really gave me time to go inside, because I wasn't working or focusing on a career or thinking about the future. I was really focusing on my mental health and my spirituality and my seeing and my awakening. And when I was there, I also immersed myself in listening to other teachers as well, because Roger spoke less about the awakening part. So I would listen to other teachers through my MP3 player, was it? Was it? Yeah, I think it was an MP3 player at the time. And and I just gave up on everything. Like, I didn't know what my future would be, you know, this career that I had going, the friends, the life in London. Like, I didn't know I could maybe project some sort of future with Roger, but not really. We didn't really have that while we were talking about future. It was like very much about the moment to moment. So all I really had was moment to moment in that experience. And if I got too heady about it, I would suffer. If I started thinking about my future and I need more security, I need to start my life, I should be doing this, or my parents, all the way over in England, I would suffer. So it was just like coming very present to the body, to my emotions that are happening in the moment, and not engaging too much in the stories that could arise, like focusing on what the body was saying. And I did that for 3 years. And one teaching that Roger and Ramesh both taught, which was really profound for me and still is, and maybe I don't talk about it enough, because we all have our style of teaching, and I tend to be like pointing out no self, no self, no self, no self, was that in every given moment do exactly what you feel like doing, knowing there is nobody that does anything. And Ramesh used to say that all the time, but until it went through the translator of Roger, and Roger like said it to me many, many times in lots of different ways, I began to understand it. What was really great about having Roger was that, you know, you hear these teachings and you kind of go into a meditation, but like sometimes it's like you hear them, but you don't really hear or comprehend them or think about them. And then with Roger, like talking and him speaking about these things again and again and asking me questions and interaction, like it really made me see it in all different angles and really begin to embody it. And it doesn't, like, that could sound very narcissistic, like it doesn't mean that you do things despite of everybody else. So if you feel like not talking, you're not empathetic to the environment, because empathy is what you feel like in the moment too. It's not like empathy is bad, but it's just becoming acutely aware of what the body wants in this moment rather than what your intellect wants. And when you really go deeply into that, into feeling what the body wants in every moment, you begin to realize that there is no difference between your body and the world. So it's not really your body, and it's not really your wants. It's life's wants. It's the flow of life. And this is where the illusory you begins to disappear. But that, like, what the body wants is going to be in accordance to its programming. So its current genes and genetics and conditioning. It's not about going beyond the genes, the genetics and the conditioning. It's about going beyond the story of who you want to be. Like, it's okay for the body to have its genes, genetics and conditioning. That's the same as a tree and its particular makeup and programming, or the grass. It's not that you have to become someone else, you have to become like the Buddha, or you have to become immensely peaceful with no reactions. It's coming back to the simplicity of you. What we do is we create something which we could call like the ego, even though Ramesh says it in the positive sense. I'm just going to use it in a negative sense. Like, we create something called the ego, which is like an idea of ourselves, an idea of what we want. And this ego can be okay. It doesn't necessarily need to be suffering, but it tends to always become suffering because there is this seeking element that's created in it. So we create this ego that wants to be a good person. There's nothing wrong with your body wanting to fit in. There's nothing wrong with that initial feeling of wanting to fit in and get on with people. Like, we're social animals and we do that. But then it goes up into this mental thing, so this mental idea. So there can be like this physiological response that wants to get on and wants to care and wants to be intimate, but it's not mental. It's just like with Khaleesi when she comes and sees me, if I've been out, she's so happy to see me. It's like a biological response that appears in her to do and to enact. So there's nothing wrong with these feelings. And sometimes, and all of us have a shadow as well. So Khaleesi has this happiness to see me, but I can also see she's got this shadow as like when she also wants to dominate me, and also will use this happiness to see me to try to push things a little further. Can she jump on me? How much can she rub up against me? Which is also like this dominating side, and there's nothing wrong with that either. That's very natural. Like, we do have this biology as humans. But what we do as humans, so Khaleesi is like totally comfortable with it. Like, she's playing me. She's like, cute, 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 rub, jump. And except I'm like, nope, you don't jump on mama. You don't jump on mama, do you? She's totally out of it. Oh, you could feel me watching you, could you? She woke up when I looked at her. That's really amazing, isn't it? That she could feel me looking at her. She's deep asleep and she could feel me looking at her. Anyway, so it's not there's anything wrong with that. It's just that it goes into a story of you. So you have this, so Khaleesi has this natural urge to be friendly, but also use it as a way to try to dominate, to try to raise her position in the pack. And I really enjoy it. Like, I don't enjoy her jumping on me, but I enjoy like, and she rubs against me, and I know that she's putting a smell on me, but it's like, I want to hug you too, but it's different. So there's nothing inherently wrong with that. These are like biological and conditioned and genetic responses of the body, mind. But what we do is we create this ego, which again is there's maybe an element of naturalness to the ego. Like, we need to have some form of self-awareness in order to be complex social animals and to speak. But then there's this other part where it turns into this like seeking to become something that you're not. So for example, I'll give the example of Khaleesi. So she has this urge when I come in to be friendly and to also try to dominate to an extent, to dominate the situation. And she can't speak or think about this, so she just feels it in her body, and it's her natural momentum to do this. Whereas the human can recognize this, but often they're not conscious if they have thoughts like that. So say if I meet a person, like I go in to meet a person, like maybe on the very bodily level, there is an urge to assert yourself, to dominate even, and to be stronger than. And in society, that is seen as shameful, and that is seen as bad, and that is seen as wrong. So the ego cannot accept that part about itself. It doesn't want to accept that part about itself. What it would like to accept about itself is that it's good, kind, and integral. I don't know. And it most probably does have those qualities as well, but it doesn't want to accept the shadow qualities of itself. So let's take Biden for an example. Like, originally when I first saw him, I didn't think that he had a kind face, but actually when I re-looked at him, I do think he's got a kind face, but I also think that he's got some form of heaviness to him. Like maybe he's worked too hard. Like, he's 77 years old and he's like got too much energy in his head. But he's a Democrat and he's very much about fairness and kindness. And I was reading an article today that if anyone is in his party like oppressive to people, is rude to people, dismissive to people, or bullying, he will not tolerate it and he will fire them instantly. So he's got these qualities of fairness and kindness, which is really nice. And I like those qualities. And maybe biologically he has more propensity towards that than other people do. But I'm pretty sure he also has, in the background, maybe to a lesser degree, the urge to dominate, to be right, and maybe even to sometimes do some forms of bullying. Like when I say bullying, like to try to get his way, you know, pushiness to try to get his way. I mean, he is the president of America. I'm sure he does have that to an extent, and like competition. But he most probably can't acknowledge those qualities in himself unless he's been into like therapy or some sort of spiritual group, because that doesn't coincide with the story that he wants to tell about himself. So he has to ignore that. So in order to ignore that and develop this like ego, or this super ego, if we want to call it that, like, because Ramesh calls the ego in the positive way. So he has to develop this like super ego where he's only focusing on the nice qualities of himself, which will make great things, I'm sure, in society, and there'll be beautiful things he creates, and kindness and more fairness. And he's playing the perfect role to do that. But he has to ignore these other sides to him, which I'm sure he has because we're all mammals. That I can have competition. I can get really fed up with my partner. We play board games together, and some games we play that are very competitive. I can't do it actually, these really competitive board games, because I get a bit mean, and I don't like that. I don't like feeling like that towards my partner. But I can play other competitive games and they don't have such an effect on me, but there's some that make me a bit mean. And that's what you'd call Lisa's shadow. Like, so I have that too inside of me, that when it comes to it, I do have a competitive side. And I most probably have not grown it that much in my life, but it's there in me. And that's what we call the shadow. And I can feel when it comes in, not all the time, but I can feel it. And I can feel it sometimes when I do one-to-one sessions or when I do these talks. Like someone that will come on and talk lots and then try to teach me. And I can feel this, like firstly there's the crossing of boundaries, which isn't about competition, but then there can be another element where it's like, I want to like stop them or outwit them or something. That's a very rare for me to have that, but when I do have it, it's normally that I've been patronized a lot, and then suddenly you're like, you want to put them in the place. There's so much you can take. Like I remember this guy once in India, like he just took the microphone and just suddenly started taking over the talk. And like I remember having a moment's urge to like make fun of him, like to trying to change it. And then I didn't do that in the end because I wasn't. But I remember feeling in the body like banging the microphone on my head and saying something like, and now a man feels like he can tell you better. Like I think I'd given an answer to someone, which is not a very nice thing to say, but that's like yeah. Anyway, that's beside the point. So let's go back to Biden. So Biden has these shadow sides, but he can't acknowledge it because that doesn't work for his person. Like his personhood is kindness. So he can't acknowledge he has that too because he persecutes people that are like that. That sounds very aggressive, persecutes, but he pushes away people that are like that, and he's trying to create more kindness and fairness in the world. Whereas Donald Trump, I don't think would have any issue, like, but he's got other issues, but he'd have any issues like competing and ruffling up his feathers. But Biden does. I'm not saying Donald Trump is better, I'm really not, but I'm just saying that Biden does. So he pushes that out of his personality structure. In order to push it out of your personality structure, guess what you've got to do? You've got to detach from the body to not acknowledge it. So if somebody accused him of having any of these shadow stuff, there's nothing wrong with shadow stuff. Everybody has shadow stuff. It's part of us. he would have to completely deny it, and he would believe that's true because he can't feel it. He has to lose sensitivity in his body, so he doesn't feel this competition, because to him that's unacceptable. He doesn't feel the aggression. He doesn't feel and there's some animals, like Donald Trump is way more aggressive, and Donald Trump has way more issues than Biden, but psychologically. But Donald Trump doesn't have issues showing that aggression, because most probably that's what he was displayed in growing up, and also maybe some other neurological reasons. So what Biden will spend his life doing is seeking to maintain his idea of goodness. And it would be hell for him, for other people to see him as bad, or for him to do bad things. And that's what I will just call in this talk, where I always change the way I talk, the super ego. So it's like this ego, this idea of what you want to be, and then this pushing out anything that you don't want to be. Whereas Khaleesi has no shame or no idea that's good or bad, so she just does it. She's like all friendly, and then she uses the friendliness to try to dominate and to try to push her way up the pack, which is very sweet. This is what happens to all humans. And when they're waking up, like, what you have to do is you have to let go of these images and stories that you tell yourself. It's all right if your body has these images and stories and imprints, but you come down to the bodily level and you go through a period of detoxing them to an extent, like, so letting them go. But it's also like your imprint. Like, if you feel competitive, then that's, if you're more competitive than others, then that's the way it is. You don't have to become perfectly peaceful. That's part of your uniqueness and your beauty and your diversity. But you get over this idea of what you want to be, and then you come more into what you actually are in every given moment without creating this story of you. So you're not like in this story of I'm good, and unconscious of what your body is saying or wanting. So you come down more to what the body is, and then you're not negotiating your way through the world, through the mind, through the image of self. And then when you begin to do that, that's where you disappear. And you see, like, your responses, your impulses are completely impersonal. They're coming from nothing. They're not a you, they're just impersonal responses that have apparently been conditioned through time. And whatever you are in every moment isn't yours. It's something that's come from millennia, from the very beginning of time, from all humans. It's like everything you do now is because of everything else. So if that star didn't twinkle the way it twinkles, if the rain didn't fall the way it fell, you wouldn't be you. Like, everything has to be in play, which is beautiful. So when you're seeking and when you're really unconscious of the body, you're living through this mental idea of yourself. You might not even really know what your mental idea is of yourself, but you're living in stories. And as you go down to the body contains stories, but if it didn't, it wouldn't function anymore. It has to contain stories. But they become very innocent, and you're not trying to be something with them. So you might have sadness because as a child you didn't get enough attention. So you might be sitting there and feeling that in the moment. And that's not the superego. That's just like the waves of this body. It's the same as Khaleesi's innate urge to dominate, and she learned the way to do that through her parents. So some people would say it's going from the head to the heart, and you could look at it in that way, because it's like the head is the thinking and the heart is like the heart of being. It's not really your heart, it's like the heart of everything. Because who are you? When you really pay attention to what's happening in your body, and the body does contain stories, but these are very like original stories, like core stories of you. Who are you? When you really go into sensation in itself begins to disappear, and then there's this emptiness, but yet there's everything. This beingness, this aliveness that knows itself. Yes. So when I used to hear it in the beginning, Ramesh's comment, in every given moment do exactly what you feel like doing, knowing there's nobody that does anything, I didn't really understand it. But then after years of living with Roger, like, I really got the depth of that statement. Like, often we hear teachers talk and we just don't really appreciate the depth of what's being said, because it's like your depth. Like, as you can only hear something to your depth. Like, sometimes I recommend to people like certain books or something, and it's really interesting, like, hearing what stands out to them. And through time on this process, like, this isn't meaning to make better, through time, through this process, it gets deeper and deeper and deeper, and you can read the same book and listen to the same talks and then have completely different response to them, like 5 years later. Like, hear completely different things that are being said. Like, when I used to first listen to Eckhart Tolle, like, he was another teacher that I was very fond of, and my Buddhist friend gave to me when I was in the Buddhist group. I had this friend that kind of like kept slipping me non-duality books. In the Buddhism at that time, it was a little bit like the non-duality, and he like, and when I listened to it, I really didn't hear no self. Like, I heard presence and being present and someone being present and someone being conscious, but I really didn't hear no self. Whereas now, when I re-listen to it, I hear him saying it a lot, but I had no sense of it. And I remember when I started going to Tony, I would think, oh yeah, like, Eckhart's completely talking about something different. Like, so when I went to Tony Parsons, like some more Neo-Advaita, because it was so obvious, Tony saying it, which I had to go through that stage of like this radical stuff, which I loved. And then I thought, you know, like, he never talks about it, but he does talk about it, so obvious. And you always listen to yourself, really. So you're reading the book and it's like at your particular place in time. Nice. So I have blabbered on, and now I will take questions. So somebody called James says, call me. So if you want me to ask question, I take preference to calls. So James is asking me to call him, so I'm going to call him in a moment. If you want me to call you, just put call me, but don't put anything after it, so I can see it properly. I'm just trying to give James warning, because it's shocking. I can imagine just suddenly having me call like, ah! Hello for all those well wishes. Who a Nitu. Hi, Huanito. Alistair, Carmela, Nick, Dennis, Julia, Carla, Bia, SP, Raphael, Elango. Okay, here we go with James. I've given him enough time to hear me say that.
Hey,
Hey, James.
hey, my name is Jamal. I'm not sure why the name is James, and I think I might have tried to change it.
Hey, yeah.
But yeah, I spoke like maybe like to you like a few years ago, but obviously I've seen it.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. I guess I wanted to kind of mention the Neo Advaita because
Yeah.
I used to, I guess like I knew or I watched on YouTube like a teacher called Raima. I think it was Raima,
Yeah.
something similar to that.
Yeah, I
But
don't know
yeah, she
that
was just like
person.
in some.
Hello? Jamil, I can't hear you. Hello? What has happened? He's maybe speaking away and I can't hear him.
I guess.
Oh, hello? Jamil?
Oh,
Yeah, you just
hey,
cut off totally
yeah,
your audio.
sure. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. We only got to the bit where you said about that teacher and I said I don't know who she is or he is.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't even hear you say that. Yeah. I guess I tried to find her later on, but obviously, like, there's so many teachers and stuff that I guess I mean, obviously, there's so many people in the world. You can't really expect if I just saw a random video on YouTube. But yeah, I feel like the Neo Advaita is kind of like it's like instant rapport. Like obviously, it's like I'm not sure if Tony Parsons talks about like building rapport with people. Like I guess it's like self-help. It's like a self-help idea, but obviously it's like accepting that everyone's like the same and like stuff like that. But it kind of comes like instantly. That's what I say. It's like instant, that sort of feeling, rather than like obviously like there being like a technique that obviously doesn't happen. I guess like it's not in time, or it's not about taking your time or stuff like that.
Yeah. James, sorry, Jamel, there's something really odd going on, like with our call. Can I just call you back in a second?
Sure, yeah, that's fine,
Okay.
that's fine.
Hello. Okay, I think that's
Hey,
better. Yeah, okay, yeah, so you were saying about Neovita and I was listening.
yeah, I guess
And you were
it's
saying
kind
about
of
it
like
being rapport, like
mm,
I don't know if that's what they would say.
sure,
Like they
yeah. I
would they
mean,
would they would say I think that it's like an energetic exchange or something like that. But it's a mystery. There's something that happens when you listen to Neo Advaita, like you listen intently to it again and again and again. There's something quite profound, like in hearing that again from somebody that's
sure,
like had a shift.
sure. I guess it's like they're really honest, or you kind of get a sense of them that you don't get from most people,
Yeah,
and I guess it must kind of stick with you sometimes. That kind of I remember with Muji, kind of like how some people that I know kind of like didn't like him, but obviously it wasn't like they didn't like him personally. It's just like, oh, they didn't like the things that he said, but it's like
yeah,
it kind of helped me to understand what he was saying more, like kind of like
yeah,
he's still just like putting out himself or just like
yeah,
being honest,
yeah.
which I think is interesting.
Who Muji is being honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that like is really personal thing because I think if you've got like a parent that you dislike that's like Muji, you might think in your conscious mind that it's you don't like him or you don't like what he says because of what he says or what he does, but it's most likely to do with your karma and your past. Like as the same as why we're attracted to so many situations. It's most probably the same with teachers that you're attracted to them to some over the others because of your past, and then there's another part where you're attracted because you can hear truth through them, and that's quite magical. We don't know why that happens, but I know that like there's some people say to me that they can feel really repulsed by me, like, and I can understand that. Like I don't have any aversion, like it's their repulsion, it's not me, I'm not repulsing, but I can understand that I represent to them like certain ideologies or certain like people represented to them in the media or like somebody in their family, and there's there's a response to it. And that's really interesting. Like, I think if you have a strong reaction to something, what is that about, and what's the body saying, and what's it doing? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like how you said like crossing boundaries. Like I guess I don't really view it as boundaries. I guess it's just like opinions, I guess, or like mixing stories. I guess that's like a way of saying it. Like kind of like trying to get involved in somebody else's narrative that they're telling about themselves. I guess it's like putting words in somebody's mouth.
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels like the person like they're listening to you and it's just like it's like maybe they're looking at you and it's like they feel like you're talking to them, but then suddenly they feel like you're putting words in their mouth, and then it's like how they obviously feel like you're talking bad things to them, or may not be, or just reminding them of stuff like that. Yeah, so just like the boundary, it's like how people can want it there or can not want it there. I guess that's just kind of like the body as well. There's kind of like some things that are temporal, stuff like that.
Yeah. I find it a little bit hard to follow you, like the last little bit that you say, just because I feel like my mind just can't keep up for some reason. That's funny,
Sorry,
isn't
yeah,
it?
I guess I was kind of making a joke. I guess what I was kind of reminded of about myself when I was saying it was kind of like the sense of like temporal stuff, like transient. Because I used to do meditation a lot, like Vipassana. And so obviously they teach you about how things are always changing, and I guess there's a sense of this, and I guess
Yeah.
obviously you can't get mad at that thing that isn't changing. I guess you can't get like
Yeah.
out of sync with it.
No. I think some people try to get mad with it. Like
Sure.
they feel angry towards that the big self, or towards that which never leaves. Like they feel like they have been abandoned by it, but you can't. Like it's you. It's what's moving now. Like moving everything now. Like it's what's animating everything now. So when you speak, you feel like the speaking maybe comes from time or the past, but it's actually coming from this moment. It's stillness making movement. So it's that which never changes, which is creating everything. So it's like if you're angry with the way things are, you're angry with yourself as the big self, because there's nobody that is doing anything independently, which is so beautiful. But yeah, people can get all types of upset about anything really. And ultimately, the biggest upset is to be upset with God for separating and feeling abandoned by God, which is yourself. You're feeling angry with yourself. And that's the deepest anger, I think, of the psychological self, of the seeking self, that I've been abandoned by God in some way. I've been chucked out of Eden. I'm alone, which isn't true.
I guess it would just be like a story that's kind of
Yeah.
gotten to them
Yeah.
as well. So where it'd be like just like the story that our community has.
Yeah.
I feel like it's really religions are all the same. Like obviously, like in the end, all communities are the same, or like all
Yeah.
mythologies, I guess.
Yeah. 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 I used to when I was younger, I was a playwright. I still do writing, but I was like an apprentice at this theatre, or not apprentice, but like part of their like young writing group, and I had a mentor, and one of the teachers always used to say that every story is based on the Jesus Christ story. So every story we tell ourselves, every mythology is based on that. And when you really look at the Jesus Christ story, like it has everything in it. Like it does have like the betrayal, it has the savior, it has the bittersweetness of the being wrongly accused. It's got so much depth to it. And then it's also got the story of waking up. Like he dies and then he's reborn again. Like he dies, but he's still alive. Like he doesn't die.
Yeah, like I find that really interesting because I guess you can imagine obviously like the Jesus story, like the Bible and stuff, came from like the same thing in the world, which is like the big church, like the big church or stuff like that. So it's like I guess it's like the media as well, or I guess like people have this idea of like the government, I guess, being bad and good, but kind of like how it's just like the same feeling that we all are reacting differently to. Because there's that elephant story, but I guess obviously like people view it at the same time. Obviously, it's literally Jesus, with us. Obviously, that we're all reacting differently to in some sort of sense, which I guess helps sometimes to think about.
Yeah. Nice. Oh, well, thanks for calling in, and it was nice to speak with you.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for all of your stuff, all the stuff you've been doing.
That's a pleasure. It's been real nice to speak with you.
No problem.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Who else would like to speak or ask questions? So if you want to call in, just call me. Take these out. Hey Lisa, I found this poem that was translated from Spanish to English. Sounds better in English. I thought you might like it. I wasn't from a non-dual teacher post. I am not I. I am not I. I am this one walking beside me whom I do not see, whom at times I manage to visit and whom at other times I forget, who reclaims and silent while I talk and forgives gently when I hate, who walks where I am not, who will remain standing when I die. I am not I. I am not this one walking beside me who I do not see. I am not I. I am beside me whom I do not see, whom at times I manage to visit and whom at other times I forget, who remains calm and silent while I talk and forgives gently when I hate, who walks where I am not, who will remain standing when I die. Nice. Yeah, that is really beautiful. I think if you go deeply into any religion, you'll find this. Hey, if you have no one to call... Oh, that's not from today. Hi, Bia. Hi, Carla. Sending you lots of love. I send you lots of love too. Ah, so nice, Julia. Hi, Dennis. Hi, friend. How about meditating as a way of allowing your light to shine brighter, radiating the vibrating energies you are? Then when we meditate together, live or recorded, more unconditional life is vibrating. Happy Sweetheart Day, your friend Dennis in Kentucky. Nice. Yeah, you could do a meditation like that as well. That's beautiful. Hey, Nick. Hey, Carmela. Alistair. In every given moment, do exactly what you feel like doing. But what if you feel like doing something terrible like murder? I don't, hypothetically speaking only. I think that that's more than likely a mind thing. So that's not really what you really feel like doing. Maybe what you really feel like doing is crying because you feel betrayed, or crying because you feel hurt, or crying because you feel abandoned as a child. And then it manifests into murder as a mind thing, like when you're cut off from your body, as like a mental image of yourself, like this hatred for these other people that have hurt you. Whereas really it's your parents or society that hurt you, and you're just carrying around that rage and that hatred. So I don't think that's what you really feel like doing. But it could be, there could be some like sociopaths out there where like they don't have the mental capacity for empathy, and so that could be dangerous for them. I also see that, but what to do? How can I not express that? Hey Thomas. Hi Schumann. Hi Lisa. During the meditation, I felt that if there is a purpose to existence, it is to be totally unaffected by this worldly experience. But because it is an existence based on ignorance and lack of love, I noticed that both pleasure and pain cause a type of tension in the body and put the emphasis on myself. Would you say the purpose of this existence is to deny the world of ignorance and see through all our attachments? Yes, but it doesn't mean that the human body stops feeling. So it's not about not feeling on the human body. So it's not about you not having pain or pleasure on the human level, but going to the place that's beyond that, that is absolutely unattached to anything in this life and only loves. And then that love allows the human to act out its issues, just like the tree is the tree, the wind is the wind, the grass is the grass, the dog is the dog. But that takes real depth to allow you to be you, because what happens in the psychology and the seeking energy of most people is really themselves is the one they want to reject the most, because they feel they're in control of it and they feel that they've got to be the perfect version of them in order to be loved and to be worthy. So to be imperfect seems like hell to the person. But when you really realize your perfection beyond form, then it's like this total surrender and allowing of what you are in the human form, which is imperfection, which is emotion, which can be pain. But when you really go into it, it also disappears. It's like the fractal. If that makes sense, Schumann. Hey Isabel, happy Valentine's Day. Hey, happy Valentine's Day. I have been told by my partner, who is German, that Valentine's Day doesn't really exist in Germany and they don't give gifts. I really like gifts. So I didn't get a gift today because that's true. I suspect it's just that they've never really done Valentine's Day and they think it's German. So if I've got any German friends out there which think that that's not true, then please send a message so I can show my partner and he can buy me a huge whopping present. Now, if that isn't manipulative, what is it? Naughty Lisa. Naughty Lisa. She's trying to... I love being given presents, I have to say. I love it. I love the opening of presents. I love not knowing what it is. And then I normally always love it, even if it's like shoe cleaner. Like I'm not... Like some people get very disturbed if they get presents they don't like. But even if I don't like it, like I'll give it to the charity shop or something. But I love the whole process of opening presents. It is fantastic. And my partner is the best present buyer there is. Like, he's given me presents just so not expected, but yet I love them. But Valentine's Day, there's no presents in Germany. Hey SP. Hi Lisa, I'm a big fan. Can you talk why it's so difficult to shift the attention to non-duality? Hey SP, you're a big fan. Oh, that's sweet, because I never think of that. Like when you're just sitting there speaking, you never really think that people are appreciating or not appreciating it, except like when they say things like that. So it's always like a little bit of a shock, like, oh yeah. Like especially as I'm always talking to a computer, if I was talking to like 100 people live, I was going to say 300 people live, but there's like an exaggeration, 100 people live, then it would be different. But I'm always talking to my computer. But can you talk why it's so difficult to shift the attention to non-duality? Because like there seems to be two processes which happen when the body-mind is waking up. There is the practice of putting the attention into the present moment, and then the other is going into the unconscious and going into the body. So going beyond the thinking mind to the unconsciousness of the body and seeing what it is the body wants. And they both coincide together. When on the days, which it can change from day to day, but on the days that you're really out of touch with your body, then it will be harder to stay present. When you're more in touch with your body, then it will, and you're unconscious, then it will be easier to stay present. So even if you're enraged, like you're angry with your workmate, if you're really conscious of that and you're not going into stories about how they did this and how they did that, but you're really conscious that you're enraged and you're not like trying to fix them or stop them or work out a way to change it, which is appropriate in certain times when they've been inappropriate, but you're really like in the feeling of rage, then it's much easier to be present because you're not like trying to resolve it in thinking. Like you're like, okay, I've just got rage, and you're just feeling the rage. So that's two things that happen. So my answer is that on the days where you're more in contact with your body and what you feel and what the unconscious is saying, then the mind will be less in seeking energy. And on the days when you're really cut off from your body, your mind will be in more seeking energy. And when the days when you really, really go into the body and you really dissolve into what's actually happening in the body and the world disappear. And all there's left is what's happening. Nice. Thank you for your question, SP. Hi, Hassan. Hi, Lisa. How are you? I'm good, thank you. My body feels fairly good. There's a bit of tight energy there, but it feels quite good all over in the other areas. The awareness is here, but when thoughts and feelings come up, I can't separate myself from thoughts and feelings. I become these feelings and thoughts. It seems that I'm either my thoughts and feelings or I am the awareness. I cannot find the right words to make my point, but do you have any suggestions? Thank you. I suppose my suggestion would be that just don't take what your mind is saying seriously. Just keep coming back to what's happening all the time, like presenting yourself again and again and again. And like the story that you don't have much success or you're failing is most probably connected to the way you felt in childhood. It's like an unconscious thought in your body, and then it manifests as a story in current time. So you think, I'm failing or I'm not doing it right. But it's maybe something you experienced in childhood. Maybe you're told it a lot by your teachers or by your parents. So it's just coming down to that original feeling of sadness or that original feeling of not feeling good enough and seeing it for what it is. Just an old habit that's coming up, an old condition that's coming up. And that the story that it's trying to tell isn't the truth or isn't speaking about you. It's just an energy that's manifesting, just like the wind, just like the sun. It's an energy. And then there is everything. Thanks, Hassan, for your question. Hi, Anu. Hi, Adam. Hey, Lisa. You were talking recently about there is nothing you can do to make the shift happen. Is that because there was never anything done? So what happens if that idea that you are doing something to get there falls away? It's because the idea of you and the idea that you're doing something is a thought that's moving in time. And this is an energetic shift back to the timeless. So the idea of you and you doing something is always moving in the film. Like, so if you imagine the film playing on the screen and the character in the film wants to get out of the film and sit on the screen, it's like, how can it do that? It already is that. It already is sitting on the screen. But it's like, so the person is looking in time and it thinks that it can arrive there, whereas it is there. What happens in the process of waking up is normally there is a settling down with the person, so the person becomes less cluttered, it becomes more peaceful, more balanced, more self-conscious. And then there is that shift, where it's realizing you're already there, that it's already you. So you can't do it because you don't really exist. It's grace, that part. The part about you settling yourself down, so you meditating and you exploring your dynamics, seems like it's you doing it. But again, that's also grace, but it appears like you're doing it. Whereas the actual shift back to who you truly are, it doesn't feel like you're doing it. It just happens at some point. There is a break and then it happens. You don't wait. You didn't suddenly go, let me just move back to who I am. It just happens. Nice. Thanks, Adam, for the question. So if you want to call in, just put call me and I will call you. Hi, Michael. During the Biden part of your talk, I became aware of my shadow side that I don't accept, that makes me feel guilty and even embarrassed for having those thoughts. How do I reconcile with that? Number one, it's seeing that they're not your thoughts. So with Khaleesi, so say if you've got a dog, so I know that Khaleesi wants to dominate. She also wants to be friendly and have attention and other things, but there's also another part of her that wants to dominate. And all dogs want to do that. They want to ride up the pecking order of the pack. So they're always trying to push the boundary a bit to see how much closer they can get to your bed. And then if they can get a paw on the bed, then another paw on the bed, then their head on the bed, then their chest on the bed, then their backside on the bed. So they're always trying to push the boundary, a little like children are as well. Whereas when you look at your dog, you don't think that she's bad for doing it because you think she doesn't know what she's doing. So you just accept that she's just doing and she doesn't know what she's doing. She's not conscious of herself. That's what most people think. And I remember maybe I can't talk about that. I was going to say about a lady I worked with, but I can't talk about that. So the same with like a child under the age of 2. Like you might, if you're really emotionally unbalanced, maybe you get really angry at the child, but most of the time you see that the child couldn't help it, didn't know what it was doing. If it tips its flask all over its head and all down its body, like it didn't know it was doing that. You might be angry with the child, but it's like it just did it. It doesn't really have much self-awareness. So particularly with animals, it's easier to see. But what we do with ourselves and the other is that we project that they know what they're doing and that they're in control of what they're doing. And this is where we have to then, when we project that, reject parts of ourselves that we can't accept, because we think that's who you are and that you're in control of it and you have the ability to be good or bad. And this is a fiction that society has been pushing onto us and creating hell in our neural network, because that's not true. You are just like Khaleesi. You have these impulses written into you and you never ask them. And they come from karma, they come from your past lives and your conditioning, your genetics and conditioning to date. You can't be anything else than what you are, and what you are is also being what you've created in life. So if you have low self-esteem, then your life might reflect that. If you feel unlovable, then your life might reflect that. But you didn't do that to get that. So the most important part to acceptance is really seeing that you are part of this flow. You don't blame a tree for the way it looks, for the way it behaves, for dropping its leaves. And equally, seeing yourself as impersonally as that. You can't help it. It doesn't mean that we don't have the idea and we don't condition ourselves to evolve from nasty or mean actions. It doesn't mean like act out all your shadow with you. It's just acknowledging it. And the more you acknowledge it in every given moment, the more you disappear. It's in trying to avoid it that you create this illusion of self and then this seeking to avoid it. It's the same with the external life as well, that we can't accept what's happening, so we go into imagination to try to avoid it. We do the same thing. So it's really seeing that part of the teaching. So life is just happening and there is no solid you that's guilty or responsible. And it's just really acknowledging it. Like I had to go through stages of like lots of hatred and anger and nastiness, and then underneath that there was just this vulnerable child that felt afraid. And I had to go through processes of doing like even things which I'd consider bad, just to have the experience of that, like what I considered was bad in me, to have the experience of it, like on what I thought others were really bad for doing, to see like just as a like healing experience, that it's so impersonal. Like what Jesus says, you know, when they wanted to throw the rocks at Mary for being a prostitute, he says, "Though thou that has not sinned, throw the first rock." And no one could throw it. Everyone is a sinner in terms of like sin and not sin when we put things into words. But then equally, everybody is innocent. And that's sometimes really hard to accept. Like part of the reason we don't want to accept ourselves is we also don't want to accept the other. But they're kind of one and the same thing. Like it's all your projection, so what you see as the other is a projection of your mind. I hope that helps. Hi Jonas. Sorry. Hi Lisa, thanks for your talk. I have a question. When there is no self, then there is no one following a certain teacher or pointing, and then there is no one that they're choosing to be interested in, not non-duality. Could you comment on this? There is never anyone in anybody. There is just bodies that have this energy which are claiming to be a somebody, which is holding into place this idea of somebody. So in this moment, you writing those words doesn't come from you, because there is no you. They are simply appearing in this moment through the formation of your particular character. But that character isn't you. So the way in which you write, what you ask, what you talk about, is indicative of what you've apparently experienced in your life and your past lives and your genetics. But that doesn't make that you, and that's not who's writing in this moment. So you come out in the appearance of apparent cause and effect. But actually, if you go really deeply into it, you realize it's this moment writing, it's life writing. There is nobody writing. I remember Roger explaining it to me in this particular way. Let's see if I can remember how he did it. But I remember like when he said it, it just like sent fireworks off in my mind. Like he explained it like these old-fashioned films. Like now everything's digital, but in days gone by, it used to be like lots of pictures moved quickly through a light that created a film, and then sound was put to that. So it's lots of still images. You move them really quickly. I'm sure most people have seen it. Tick, 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 tick. And then the light makes it appear like a film, like action happening on the screen. That's so inventive that we did that. That's so cool. That's like amazing shadow puppets. Like in the beginning, I'm sure the person that invented it, like first of all, was thinking about shadow puppets. Maybe not. But yes, so that's how film works. And Roger explained it like that's how the appearance of the world and the appearance of the illusion of self works. Is it's all these like separate pictures put together, moving really quickly, giving the appearance of movement. But in reality, it's stillness. Like the light is stillness. So with your illusory self, so it goes one picture to the other, so the film makes sense. So somebody is walking down a street, so it's got all these pictures of them like moving in all different poses. And then you run them together and then it looks like that person is going down the street. So it looks now like there is a you in there that's coming from the past and making the decision to listen to me and write to me. But actually, it's singular images put together, speeded up, and made it seem like something's happening. So in your head, you've collected all these images and you're holding together this image of you that's writing. So all these images of you walking into the room, sitting down, typing at your computer, listening to me speak, you're holding all those images now. These single shots in your mind, and then you're running them as a story of you. But the actuality of it is when you type the question, it's this moment typing. That is a story that's appearing. That's not what's actually happening. I'm sure Roger put that a lot more eloquently and simply than I just did. because I think I maybe mixed up two metaphors, because you can also see it as the absolute, like the absolute is the stillness, the light, and then the appearance of the world. So it's like even now, like if you imagine my arm, like you have an image of my arm being up here. No, you don't have an image. Yeah, you do have an image. You see me holding my arm up here, and now you see me holding my arm here. And your brain is putting together that movement while you're speaking to me, giving the appearance of me speaking to you, communicating and moving my arm. And another animal, like we're so conditioned to the cult of being human, another animal like a reptile most probably really doesn't experience the world like that. Like that's the way our brains are interpreting this world, but most likely this world really doesn't look like that. In a way, it most probably looks like nothing. But a reptile, I think that they're only experiencing sight through movement. God knows how they're experiencing it through smell and stuff. And then they're also experiencing distance, I think, through tongue, I think. So through taste, they're experiencing distance. I think, something like that. But definitely with the sight, they're only seeing movements. Everything else is what? What is life to them? So in our particular world, you're seeing things in apparent cause and effect because that's the way your brain is interpreting it. What is happening is absolutely mystery. You could say what's happening is nothing appearing as everything, using these instruments in order to experience something. But in reality, it all comes back down to absolute stillness, or not knowing maybe as well. Just like that light that's going through those pictures in the film, that the light is perfectly still through that, and then these pictures are giving the image of all that movement. That's the way your brain's working. So you're seeing it through time. So you see yourself constantly, me through time, me through time. And if you become really present to this moment, then everything is timeless. Everything is just here. I'm not saying that we don't use cognitive thinking to an extent, but there's another world that takes on. That this becomes secondary. At the moment, this is first. When that becomes secondary and the body becomes primary, then everything begins to disappear. Nice. Thanks, Jonas, for that question. I don't know if I can take too many more questions. I think I'm getting tired. Hi, Hassan. Thank you. With pleasure, Hassan. Brian. Hi, Lisa. When you spoke about anger for being kicked out of Garden of Eden or being angry at God, a lot of energy came up in my body. I could feel the rage and also the fear. In some ways it feels like death and there is great anxiety around it. What's the best way to experience or respond to this intensity? I don't know. The best way is the way that you respond. And then I suppose another way would be just bring attention to it, just giving it space, like not going off into distraction or going off into mentality. Just giving it space. What I used to do when I felt angry with God is I used to shout at God and tell him all the reasons that I was angry with him. Or her. I think I saw my God as a man. Yeah, we can look into the psychology of that, Lisa later. No, the psychology of Lisa later. Oh, got confused with words now. Thank you, Lisa. Accepting imperfections in myself or the world around me is a challenge. Thank you for your talks. They are of great help. With pleasure, Schumann. Yeah, it can be challenging. Because it's the world of opposites. It's the world of growth and destruction. And we're so indoctrinated to believe that we can have a world of only growth and only positivity. And it's the world of opposites. What a challenge it is. What a dance. Hi, Andre. I think this is my last question for tonight. I can feel I'm getting a bit tired. Hi, Lisa. Sometimes when I really look into myself and see my ego from a different perspective, I completely lose the motivation that I had to keep doing the things I have engaged with in my life. This is not a problem itself, The problem is that I do not really find motivation to do anything else. I just feel like doing nothing. It does not feel good. I try to find motivation to do something, but I do not find it. I feel lost and a bit depressed. I'm a bit afraid the depressive feeling could get stronger the more I look into myself. Yeah, that's different from doing what you feel like doing. That's depletion in the solar plexus. So our solar plexus is often overactivated by seeking. So the solar plexus is about doing. Like in the positive, it feels like it can do things, it can conquer, it can achieve things, it wants to do things. And in its negative, it feels frustration, anger, like it can't do things, like everything's hopeless, meaningless. And then it's like frustration, anger, and then finally depression. So it's actually that as you go into yourself, you're tapping into the solar plexus. And in the past, you've used your imagination and your thoughts to keep the solar plexus in the positive. And as you begin to let go of that, it's slipping into the negative, and then you're believing it to be true. So then my suggestion would be to, on the human level, work on the solar plexus energy. And you can find out about that on the internet. You can look up the solar plexus chakra. You can meditations, yoga. I've got stuff on my website you can look at. It's an energy stored in your body. And at the moment you're believing it to be part of you and who you are, and you're afraid of it. And it's just an energy. It's the opposite to, like, the seeking energy for the person has been like, do, get. And then when it stops the belief in it, it just goes into the opposite. So it's just an energy. Like in a way, that's what you've been scared of. That's why you were like, do, because you were scared of the other side of it. And maybe your mom and dad had that energy towards you. Nice. Thank you for your question. Okay, I stop now because I begin to feel a little tired. But yeah, nice. Thank you, anyone that asked questions and put themselves out there and made themselves vulnerable and called in. I really appreciate it. Look, I've still, after 2 hours, got my glasses marks on my nose. Funny, eh? Yes, and I will see you next Sunday at 6 p.m. French time. And have a beautiful week. I wish you everything. Goodbye.